My beloved brothers and sisters, what would make a man give away treasures without hesitation, share his last piece of food without fear, and live simply when he could have lived like a king? It was because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam trusted Allah's promise more than he trusted what was in his own hands. When we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the most profound lessons he left us with was his attitude toward wealth. He did not see wealth as something that truly belonged to him, nor did he view it as a symbol of status or power. Instead, he recognized that everything in this world is ultimately owned by Allah, and that we as human beings are nothing more than caretakers and trustees of what He has given us. This perspective is the foundation of why he gave so much away. He knew with absolute certainty that wealth was not a personal possession, but a trust that came with responsibility. When something belongs to Allah, holding on to it selfishly is a betrayal of that trust. By giving generously, he was demonstrating to his companions and to the entire ummah that wealth fulfills its true purpose only when it is shared. Imagine the powerful example he set. While others may have been tempted to accumulate treasures and store provisions for years, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam often gave away whatever came to him on the very same day. He would sometimes go hungry, not because he did not have access to food, but because he had already given away what he had to someone in greater need. This was not poverty, this was purpose. His choice to live simply was a conscious reminder that the dunya is temporary and that our attachment should never be to gold, silver, or possessions, but to Allah and the life to come. Wealth, in his view, was like a river that flows. When it moves, it nourishes life. When it is blocked, it stagnates and decays. By giving away, he was keeping that river flowing, ensuring that it benefited the poor, the orphan, the widow, and the traveler. This is why he never hesitated to respond to someone in need. If he had, he would give. If he had not, he would find another way to help. And in doing so, he reminded us that every coin, every morsel of food, every piece of clothing we hold is not really ours, but a temporary loan entrusted to us by Allah to see how we will use it. This understanding transforms the way we look at our own possessions. When you know something is not truly yours, your heart is lighter in letting it go. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam generosity was not an occasional act of kindness, it was a way of life. He was teaching us that the hands which give are blessed, and the heart which trusts Allah with what it gives away will never be empty. This is why those around him witnessed miracles of barakah, where small amounts of food fed entire gatherings, and where wealth shared only seemed to grow. His detachment from wealth was not detachment from responsibility. It was the deepest form of responsibility, one that recognized the source and the purpose of all provision. The life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the living proof that true richness is not measured by the abundance of possessions, but by the contentment of the heart. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam could have lived in luxury if he wanted to. Kings and rulers of his time would have gladly showered him with treasures, yet he chose simplicity over extravagance. He preferred sleeping on a mat of palm leaves rather than a bed of silk. His household would often go days without fire being lit, surviving on dates and water, and yet he was the happiest of all people. Why? Because his heart was free from attachment to the dunya. He did not allow worldly possessions to dictate his peace. Instead, his peace came from knowing Allah, trusting Him, and living for the hereafter. This detachment from material things was not because he hated wealth itself, but because he knew its dangers. Wealth can blind the heart, make people arrogant, and enslave them to endless desires. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us that when you hold the world in your hand, not in your heart, you become its master rather than its prisoner. His detachment was a powerful message that happiness does not come from how much you own, but from how content you are with what Allah has given you. Contentment, he taught, is the real treasure. The companions noticed this deeply. When they saw him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, give away food, clothes, or money, they also saw that he never felt a sense of loss. Instead, he radiated calmness and joy, as if giving away only increased his wealth. This was the secret of detachment. When you are not bound by possessions, you can use them for their real purpose. Serving others and drawing closer to Allah, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said, "A richness is not having many possessions. Rather, true richness is the richness of the soul." This is the heart of detachment. We live in a world today where people measure themselves by their cars, house, clothes, and bank balances. But if you compare this to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who sometimes had nothing stored in his home, you realize how far we have drifted. His life is a reminder that chasing material things will never satisfy the hunger of the soul. There will always be someone with more, always a new desire waiting, always a new standard to chase. Detachment frees us from this endless cycle. It opens the doors to gratitude, patience, and generosity. One of the most striking qualities of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the depth of his compassion. His heart was never at ease when he saw someone in need, and his immediate response was to give, to comfort, and to provide. His generosity was not a habit of wealth distribution. It was the natural overflow of mercy that defined his character. The Quran describes him as a mercy to the worlds, and this mercy shone brightest in the way he treated the poor, the orphans, the widows, and the travelers who had nothing to lean on. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam never allowed someone to leave his presence feeling neglected or humiliated. If a needy person approached, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would give whatever he had, even if it meant giving away his own belongings or food that was meant for his household. Think about this. Many times he and his family would go hungry, not because there was no provision, but because whatever came into his possession was already given away. There were moments when he sallallahu alaihi wasallam had only a handful of dates, and yet he still shared them. If he had a single garment, he was willing to give it to someone who had none. This was not an act of obligation, it was pure compassion. His heart could not bear to see suffering when he had the means to reduce it. His giving was deeply personal. He didn't just distribute wealth mechanically. He cared for people with kindness, dignity, and attention. This compassion extended even to those outside his immediate community. There are countless instances where he helped strangers, travelers passing through, or even people who had once opposed him. His mercy did not discriminate. To him, every human being deserved to be treated with generosity because every human being was a creation of Allah. His giving was therefore not about wealth alone. It was about uplifting the spirit of the one who asked, restoring their dignity, and reminding them that they were seen and cared for. In our time, we often measure generosity by the size of what we give. But the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us that the real measure lies in the sincerity of the heart behind it. Sometimes he gave small things, but the comfort and dignity with which he gave made them priceless. He also taught us that even a smile to your brother is an act of charity. This compassion-driven generosity is what made him so beloved, and it is why the world still remembers his character centuries later. He didn't just preach kindness, he lived it, he breathed it, he embodied it. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not simply instruct his followers with words. He taught through his actions, his lifestyle, and the way he interacted with people. When it came to generosity, he was the walking example of what he preached. He showed his companions that wealth does not decrease when given in the path of Allah, and that real blessings come when you share. This lesson could not have been conveyed by words alone, it had to be demonstrated. So, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave again and again until giving became a symbol of his character. He did not want his ummah to fear poverty when giving charity, nor did he want them to hold back from helping others. Instead, he showed them that the hand that gives is always above the hand that takes, and that Allah places barakah in what is shared. The companions were deeply moved by this. They watched how he sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave away animals, food, gold, silver, and even clothing without hesitation. On one occasion after the Battle of Hunain, he gave away so much wealth that a man returned to his people saying, "O my people, accept Islam, for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives like one who does not fear poverty." That statement alone captures the essence of his teaching. He gave in such abundance that people realized his trust was not in wealth, but in Allah. His generosity was a living lesson that charity is not loss, but gain. Through his example, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was shaping the mindset of his community. He wanted his companions to rise above greed and selfishness, to see wealth as a tool of goodness rather than a means of pride. When they saw him give without attachment, they learned to do the same. It was this spirit that later made the Muslim community known for its generosity, where zakah, sadaqah, and waqf endowments became part of the social fabric. He was not only teaching individuals to give, but building a culture of generosity that would benefit generations to come. What makes this lesson even more powerful is that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not give from a position of luxury. Often, he gave while himself had little. This showed the companions that giving is not reserved for the wealthy, but is an obligation and honor for every believer, no matter how much or how little they possess. By his actions, he silenced excuses and opened hearts. His teaching was clear: fear abundance before you give, because generosity begins with trust in Allah. One of the most beautiful wisdoms behind the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam giving away wealth was his deep understanding that giving purifies both the wealth and the soul. Wealth in itself is not evil, but it can carry elements that are questionable, and it can easily corrupt the heart if it is hoarded or misused. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam demonstrated that by giving in charity, a person cleanses their wealth from any trace of impurity, and at the same time cleanses their heart from greed, arrogance, and the desire to cling to material possessions. When you release wealth in the path of Allah, you are in fact releasing yourself from its grip. The Quran reminds us that charity is a means of purification. Take from their wealth a charity by which you purify them and cause them to increase and invoke blessings upon them. This verse was lived by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the most complete way. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave so freely because he wanted to keep his own heart pure, unattached to the glitter of this world. He knew that if wealth is not managed through giving, it begins to pollute the soul with pride and selfishness. By giving, he turned wealth into a tool of worship, transforming something worldly into something that brought eternal reward. This purification was not just for himself, it was a lesson for the entire ummah. He taught that when you give, you are not losing anything, but rather protecting what you have. Charity acts like a shield. It shields your wealth from destruction, and it shields your soul from arrogance. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said, "A charity does not decrease wealth." This statement carries a truth that goes beyond mathematics. What you give may leave your hand, but it does not leave your life. It returns in the form of barakah, protection, and peace of mind. Purification through giving also nurtures humility. When you part with wealth for the sake of Allah, you acknowledge that what you had was never truly yours. It humbles you before your Creator, reminding you that you are only a caretaker, not an owner. This humility keeps the heart soft, compassionate, and free from envy. It prevents wealth from becoming a barrier between you and other people. Instead of being a source of pride, it becomes a source of connection and kindness. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave, he was not only purifying himself, but teaching his followers to free their hearts. He wanted them to experience the sweetness of generosity, the lightness of letting go, and the peace that comes when you know your wealth is serving others and pleasing Allah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a certainty about Allah's promise that was unshakable, and this is one of the greatest reasons why he gave away wealth so freely. He understood that everything we spend for the sake of Allah is not gone, it is invested. It is written for us, preserved for the hereafter, and multiplied beyond our imagination. His trust in Allah's promise was absolute, and he lived his life as though every coin given in charity was already waiting for him in a far greater form with Allah. He taught that wealth given does not decrease, and he proved it by his own actions, never fearing poverty even when giving away immense treasures. When someone came to him seeking help, he never hesitated. Even if he had little, he gave. Even if he had nothing material, he offered words, prayers, and support. Why? Because he trusted that Allah, the owner of all provision, would replace whatever he spent. His heart was free from the anxiety that grips so many of us, the fear of running out, the fear of not having enough. He knew that the one who provided yesterday is the same who will provide today and tomorrow. That unwavering faith in Allah's promise allowed him to be the most generous of all people. This trust was not limited to wealth. It was a way of life. He trusted Allah in times of difficulty, in times of ease, in moments of loss, and in moments of abundance. But when it came to giving, his certainty became a lesson for all of us. He wanted us to see that generosity is not a loss but a gain. What you spend in this world may leave your hand, but it never leaves your destiny. It is recorded, preserved, and returned in ways you may never expect. Sometimes in this life, through barakah and blessings you cannot measure, and sometimes in the next life where the reward is eternal. For many of us, the hesitation to give stems from a fear that if we part with what we have, we might not recover it. But the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam removed this fear completely. He lived to show us that sustenance is not in our control, it is in Allah's. You could have mountains of wealth and still feel empty, or you could give away what little you have and still feel rich in the heart. Trusting Allah's promise changes the way we see everything. It replaces fear with peace, hesitation with courage, and greed with generosity.